Hey, good morning. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. It is a beautiful morning here. I hope it is where you are too. Whatever kind of beautiful is to you. Some people need rain, so if you need rain, I hope it's raining today. But here we've had some, and today it is. Well, you couldn't picture a better morning than this. I want to talk today about surviving riots and attacks. Lindsey Graham came out. Before I get into that, let me take a sip and thank all of you, by the way. Welcome to all the new members, all of our new subscribers, both on YouTube and on Patreon. It's great to have you. We are having some great discussions over on Patreon. I've put up some kind of special stuff over there in the last week or so, stuff that I won't put on YouTube because YouTube doesn't like it. They find that it's YouTube unacceptable, and so if I put it on YouTube, it gets banned or it gets whatever. That stuff goes on Patreon, and if you are really serious about preparedness and survival, especially when it comes to things like firearms or self-defense or things like that, come join us on Patreon, because that's where it's going to be found. The other thing is, you all are snowing me under. My gosh. I forgot to tell you that this, as every video, is brought to you by the Stonemont series, my series of books where I talk about how to prepare for, survive, and rebuild from a total collapse, and that couldn't be applied to anything. A world collapse, a personal collapse, everything in the world. You all have been buying these. The sales of these books have been off the charts on Amazon for about the last 3 weeks. And I'm sure it has to do with a number of things. The solar cycle that we're going through now. We're in solar cycle number 25, and it's getting more and more active. You may have had trouble with your cell phones, your internet access. We have here a lot, and we've been following that quite a bit. We know that a lot of that has had to do with some lower grade CMEs that have been hitting us recently. This was about turning off the whole world by one of the big CMEs, based on the Carrington class CME. And what would happen, and it's all about that. So we know that that's driving it, but also the uncertain times are driving the sales of these. In addition to the Amazon sales going off the charts, I have run out of books again for autographed copies. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the way you can get these books, I always put the links down there, and you can get it it'll show you how to either get it from Amazon, or you can get it from me personally, autographed, and the address, all the information is down there in the information box, and a pinned comment. So if you want that, so I've run out, I've got all the shipped out. I still have orders waiting on my desk, and more come in every day. So I'm expecting a new shipment in a week or two, and then And for those of you who have waited a little bit, I apologize for the wait. Don't worry, you'll get them. It's just a matter of I'm apparently not ordering enough copies per time, so I'm going to start doubling my orders. And if that's not enough, I'll triple them. We'll just we'll keep it going. So don't worry, you'll get them. I had somebody say, while I'm on this subject, I had a comment that popped up, and usually here on this channel we don't get very many rude comments at all. I hear other channels talking about how many trolls they get, and we just don't get them here very much. And so that's not, because we have a high class of commenter here and a high class of viewer. But I did have somebody make a comment the other day about, crying out loud, you just talking about your books. Well, I know that most of you aren't that rude and stupid, but the thing is this is a preparedness channel, and these are about preparedness. As a matter of fact, as I've said before, you cannot, I have never had anyone ask me a question whether in life or on the channel here, that I haven't already answered in detail in these books. So that's why I talk. That's why I wrote them. These really are an in-depth educational resource in the story of a novel that you'll like. Good people, bad people, love, excitement, all those kinds of things. But that's what they're about. This is a preparedness channel, and these are books that I spent years writing about preparedness. So for the goober who says, well, you just want to sell your books, why do you think I wrote them, idiot? So for the rest of you good people, I almost said good Americans. My gosh, I didn't realize we have people watching all around the world. And I used to just think that it was Canada and Australia and Germany and the UK. But when I found the page that showed me all the different countries that people watch from, I couldn't believe it. So hello to all of you. Okay, what I want to talk about for a couple of minutes here today is Lindsey Graham, who I am not a fan of, but who is a senator from a state that I love, South Carolina. I love South Carolina. I love the people, for the most part, except Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. I love the ones that I've met. And my family, a large part of my family is from South Carolina. Matter of fact, they came in back in the 1600s. And left after that unpleasantness in the 1860s to come west and finally end up in Missouri. But South Carolina is a cradle of one branch of my family, and we're going to take a trip down there next year to visit some of the old family places and show the kids a little bit about that war. So anyway, that was my explanation of Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. Why don't you all down there elect yourselves a real conservative? He made the statement on some TV show. I didn't watch the TV show, but I saw this on one of the aggregators. I forget whether it was Breitbart or Liberty Daily or one of those. That he made the statement that if Trump is charged or prosecuted, that's two different. You're charged first and then you're prosecuted. And at what point, I'm not sure when this may happen, if he's right. But he said if Trump is charged, there will be rioting in the streets. Now, of course, he's talking about that thing down at Mar-a-Lago, which pales in comparison to things that the Clintons and the Bidens have done, and pretty much every other Democrat. But he says that if they are, there'll be rioting in the streets. Now, I agree with him and I disagree with him, because implied in his answer is that if they charge Trump or then go to the next step of prosecution, at some point in there will be rioting in the streets by Trump supporters. I don't believe that. I don't believe that a bit. As a matter of fact, one of the sad things is, and there was another article, but I do believe that rioting could occur, so we're going to get that in a second. Another article that I read, and I didn't read the whole thing, I read the headline and enough to let me know what they were talking about, says that as this stuff is being reported more and more and more in the media about Mar-a-Lago and this redacted, I'm not getting into politics here very much. That's for American reversion, but just explaining why we're talking about rioting. That the more that this is reported about what could be in those papers, that it seems that a lot of former Trump supporters are softening in their support of Trump. Now, whether that's true or not, and a lot of times it's just like a push-pull, we know that the media will report things as news that's not news, but is trying to drive opinion. And they could say that simply to accomplish what they are reporting on. You know, that there could be, they could say, we still got, you know, there's still strong support for Trump out there, but if we report that it's softening, that's going to make a lot of the people soften who aren't really hardcore, who are just kind of following along emotionally and don't have their core values intact. And that's exactly what does happen. You know, they will report things, and somebody will say, well, gee, you know, a lot of other people are not supporting Trump anymore, and they talk to their friends and they go, yeah. It's kind of like those people that were always saying, well, I don't, you know, I'll support him, but I don't like a lot of things that he does, you know, or will qualify his support. Have you ever noticed that the Democrats never qualify their support for their candidates? They're rock hard, and you know, conservatives love to think of themselves as being strong, core valued people. Well, they're not really, to be honest. They're too many are wishy-washy, and that's that. And you see that in their qualified support of Trump. I'll vote. But I don't like this. But I don't like his tweets. But I don't like that. Well, we're not really talking about Trump here. What we're talking about is conservatives. And so I don't believe for a minute that the conservatives will do anything. I mean, the conservatives will do what they always do, and that is grumble and grouse and you know, and there will be more YouTubes put out about it, and there will be more items on the conservative media about how terrible it is and how horrible it is and everything like this. But the conservatives aren't going to do anything. The conservatives never do anything. The conservatives barely vote. And that's the problem, you know. Well, and too many in the prepper community, you know, always will stomp their feet and raise their fists and say this will not stand, and the time has come to rise up, you know, and but they don't. I mean, I don't see any of them, you know, whatever they consider to be rising up, except making comments on YouTube channels. You know, and like I've said, you know, I mean, do what you want to. There's nothing wrong with expressing your opinion. Feel free to express your opinion, but don't say that things ought to be done that you're not doing. Okay, that's my opinion. Don't do it. If you want to talk up even more, start a YouTube channel of your own and start pushing those things that you want to push. Okay, but I don't believe the conservatives will at all. What I do believe is that as this develops, and if they do charge Trump, and even if they don't, the left, and we'll probably wait, it's going to probably be until after, they won't make a move until after Labor Day, probably, because it's all political, and we know that. And the political season, even though it's kind of been ginning up here a little bit, it really hits after Labor Day. So after Labor Day, we're going to see, well, I'm not going to say we're going to see, I'll say we could see. And this is why we prepare, because we prepare for what could happen, right? We prepare for what will happen, naturally. But if we only prepare for what will happen, which means we actually know it's going to happen, our preparations would be somewhat limited. We prepare for what could happen. That means all eventualities, and that's why preparation and preparedness is a multi-dimensional activity and mindset. You know, we want to cover all bases. So I think that there's a very good possibility that after Labor Day, they'll make their announcement. Either he's going to be charged or not charged, and if he's charged, he's either going to be prosecuted or not prosecuted. They're going to play this up, and they won't give any definitive answers because they want to keep this rolling through the election season. They want to keep this rolling at least until the election. Excuse me, my nose itches. Somebody's talking about me out there. Probably that one idiot out there that's still talking about he just wants to sell his books. That's right. Ooh, could I piss you off again? So I think they want to keep this rolling, and so what's going to happen is that I think there's a good chance the left is going to rise up, and the left may riot. Now we know how good they are at that, right? If those of you who are old enough to remember the 1968 Democrat convention in Chicago, which really which just exploded into violence. 68 was an interesting year. It was Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Vietnam was going on. The Weathermen and SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, caused all the riots up there at the Democrat convention. And so the left is the ones who always gins up. Right? They're the ones who stand up, like conservatives, say that they will and never do. So I can see them rising up. Even when the interesting thing about them, they'll riot when things are going their way, and they'll riot when things are not going their way. Okay? So, I mean, not going their way, that's normal, but going their way, I should have said that in the other direction. They'll even riot when things are going their way because, yeah. And they do that in order to put political pressure on the courts, on prosecutors, on the people, on the news media, everything like this. And they're very good at it, and they're very loud. And we know that they can be very violent. They don't restrict themselves like conservatives do. They'll burn stuff and raise hell and start riots and all like this. Well, you can get caught in the middle of that. But not only will they do that, individual attacks, they're good at that. I mean, just the average liberal is so violent in their thought against people with whom they disagree that those on the margins, and sometimes even those more mainstream, can bring themselves to doing something against other people physically, whether it's keying your car, screaming at you at the store, doing all sorts of things. And their attacks can go from that. Their attacks can go from, spitting in your food in the drive-through line if you're wearing a Trump hat, right? Or to key in your car while you're in the store, or yelling and screaming at you because you're wearing a t-shirt that says something they don't like. These things can escalate. The largest fire begins with a spark, right? And you never know how far that spark is going to go. And that's what you have to be ready for. In the cases of riots, I've mentioned before that in Kansas City, 1968, I remember the riots very well. I know how they can explode. Some of you out there have some experiences in that as well. Those of you who do have experiences, feel free, as always, to share your experiences in here, because most people don't have those kinds of experiences, and I say that to law enforcement and firefighters and first responders and combat military and things like that. If you have experiences that that the majority of people don't, feel free to put it in your comments, because other people can learn from that. But riots can flash, and you never know. When an announcement is made, it might happen after an announcement's made, it might take a little while to gin up. There is not going to be a safe time between now and the elections, and maybe not even after that. Be prepared in all ways. Okay, this is the thing. In order to survive a riot, the best thing to do is not be there. I used to teach my fighters and my martial arts students. I said the ways not to get hit are, first, don't be there. Don't be where the strike is coming, right? Second, parry. Only third, block. A parry is a redirection of a strike. A block is a forceful, meeting of the strike with greater force, hopefully, that keeps it from landing on you. But, in a block, you're engaged. You're in the middle of it. You're fighting back. In a parry, hopefully you're just slipping and stepping outside of it and avoiding it. The best one is not to be there at all. I've said this, that I had a good friend of mine, Jim Harrison, that a lot of times he'd tell people, he says, I've had my, and he's one of the, he's one of the toughest men I ever knew. So it's not like he wanted to avoid fights. In fact, if it was brought his way, he was happy to dance, But he would tell people kind of jokingly, he says, I've had my nose broken in 3 places, and I learned to stay out of those places. Well, that's good. Avoid it if you can. Pay attention to the news. If you see things flaring, stay away from those areas. A lot of people work. And now, for people in smaller towns and in rural areas, you don't have to worry about this. like people in the suburbs and the cities do. But, who knows? I mean, you got to drive into town for a doctor's appointment or something like that, or people go to town all the time. That's why towns are there. People like to go to town. People like to live in towns. People like to live, not everybody. I know I see you out there going, I don't like to live around people. Well, good for you, I do. I enjoy people. I've come to enjoy people a lot more as my disgust for them has kind of minimized after I left. Just don't take them too seriously, and most of them are fairly nice on the surface, and as long as you live on the surface. I don't want to live on the surface, Steve. I believe in going deep and having good relationships. So do I, and I have all those. But what I'm saying, I was preemptively answering what I knew a comment would be. That's why you want to get out of the cities. But people go into the cities. People don't want to be in the cities. If you are in the suburbs and the cities, first thing, always keep your ear on the news. Know what's going on, local news. If you have one of those apps on your phone that will give you warnings when things, like the Amber Alerts and News Break and things like that, have that on. Stay tuned to what's going on. There's for instance, in Kansas City, we have a place that a lot of things start up. It's called the Plaza. If you hear that things are, there's a large crowd forming at the J.C. Nichols Fountain on the Plaza, and they're protesting. Could be any. I mean, who knows? Polar bears are drowning, and Trump's being charged. Trump's not being charged. There's a large group gathering. You're gonna find provocateurs in those crowds. You're gonna find instigators. You're gonna find people who will try to take a somewhat peaceful demonstration and gin it up into, all of a sudden somebody throws a rock through a plate glass window of a fancy store, and somebody throws a Molotov cocktail through somewhere, and here it goes. Now you got police presence, and now you've got a big fight. You don't want to be in the middle of that, because anything can happen. You're trying to drive home and you get stuck at a traffic light, or you get stuck behind a car who has stopped to say something to somebody, and all of a sudden a rock comes through your car window, or somebody throws a Molotov cocktail and it lands on your car, and all of a sudden all you see is fire from your hood instead of the car ahead of you. You don't want to be caught there, okay? The safety of yesterday is gone. And then all of a sudden now you don't know what to do. And now you're turning around and you're trying to get out of there, and you slam it in reverse, and you start to back up and you slam into the car behind you, okay? And now you're stuck. This is how things happen. You don't want to do that. So if you're in a place and you hear that something's going on, you say, hey, boss, unless you're the boss. If you're the boss, you say, hey, folks, why don't you all take the rest of the day off? Well, we got some trouble brewing here. Let's leave the area and get home. Enjoy the rest of your day. You'll get paid. Just get home, and we'll see how things develop. And I'll call you all in the morning to tell you whether to come into work in the morning. Okay? If you're not the boss, you say, hey, boss, I got a situation at home. I gotta go. Now, see you tomorrow. The situation at home is, hey, I want to get home. As simple as that. You're not a slave. You can leave. You don't need your boss's. If you need your boss's permission to leave, you're a slave. And I know there are a lot of people that will say, well, I work on an assembly line and I can't just leave, the whole line shuts down. I get it. Make your own decisions. So be aware of that. Don't be there. Secondly, try to parry it. If you haven't left in time, you need to have several, alternative routes that you can get home. And you need to think about those beforehand. I would suggest you plot those out now. If you don't have a map, like the old timers like me do, go on Google Earth, and look around there. If you're not familiar with the streets around your work or wherever you're going to be, and say, okay, if I need to get home and I can't get through there, here is the next way I can go, and it's on secondary streets, and I'm not going to get bottlenecked here and such as that, and I'm staying out of those congested areas. Pretty much every area, if it has a major intersection that's congested, there are a lot of side streets that you can take. So that's the next thing. Thirdly, be prepared to be honest, fight it out. Do you have your defensive tools in your vehicle? Hopefully on you all the time. Your defensive tools should be on you all the time. Well, at work we have a rule that we can't carry defensive tools. Well, okay. Do you obey everything that they tell you at work? You gotta, you decide for that. But there's always a way. I've had nurses, say, how do I carry in scrubs? There's a way, and plenty do it. Okay, it's just a matter of thinking. And say, first off, say, I'm going to do it. You see, that's your first choice. Am I going to do it or not do it? Don't think I'm not going to do it because there's a rule. Okay, take this for what it's worth. It's your decision, but this is what I would do. First off, yeah, I'm not going to obey that rule because my life is more important than that rule, and so I'm going to do it. Now, how do I do it? Now, you figure it out. And that comes down to size of defensive tool and how you can carry it in all sorts of ways. Maybe I'll cover that over on Patreon. We'll see. Yeah, I probably will, because as some of you know, I was undercover for a long time. I carried 3 guns and a knife in civilian clothes, and nobody ever saw them, and they were big guns. Okay, so I do have experience in that. I guess I'll make one over there on Patreon on that. So I have those, but not only that, make sure that your gas tank is always full. It's a good time now to say at the end of every day, I'm topping that tank off. Anything under 3/4 of a tank is empty. Top it off. Have stuff in your office. Have food in your desk or wherever you work. I talk to your office or whatever it is. Have your bag. Have your bag that's always with you that not just has, the stuff in it like a jick bag. And I realize I haven't gone through all the stuff that I carry in a jick bag, what I call a jick bag. People call it get home bags, go bags, whatever. I introduced the concept to the world in this book, a jick bag, just in case, J-I-C, jick. And I keep meaning to make one. I know people love those videos of when people bring their bag out and show them everything in it. Maybe I'll do that, or maybe I'll just read you the list of stuff that I have in mine. I know that's not as interesting as if I go in and look at this and look at this and look at this. But it serves the same purpose, except for entertainment value. So have the stuff that you need along with food. I always have several days of food in your jick bag. So if you say, hey, I think things have progressed too far for me to try to get home, call the wife or the kid or the husband, say, they're riding down here, and I think I'm gonna stay in the office overnight. All right, well, and I've got plenty to eat. That's the thing. See, I got plenty to eat. Realize also, however, that it can be a danger if you stay where you are, because what if the building that you happen to be in becomes a target? Okay, that can happen, and then you're back to, okay, I got to fight my way out of this. How do I do? Have your plans. How many ways to get away from where you are, your workplace or whatever? How many ways to get away? How many ways to get out of your building? Okay, depending on if all of a sudden you see flames coming up the front of the building that you're in, Okay, what about the back way? Where does it go out to? Where's my car in relation to that back way? Does it make sense to get out there and try to do it, or does it make sense to shelter in place? I got my defensive tool and I've got food, and I'm just going to stay in this storeroom or my office or whatever until they all get tired, and they usually do. This stuff usually stops by about 3 or 4 in the morning when they all get tired or drunk. So that's it. Start to think more about this. Start thinking about your defensive stance on a daily basis, and check your list. Do you have everything that you need? Now, is this going to happen? There's no way to know. I think a lot of stuff's going to happen, but I do know that the potential is there, and that's the important. We prepare for potentials, right? So think about this. Be ready. I would suggest, take all those stickers off your cars, all those stickers that say who you support and what you, if you don't want to, I also understand that, because I'm one to fly the flag myself. If you got a Trump sticker on there, if you've got a right to life sticker on there. I'm all for that if you're willing to back it up. Okay, just realizing that the cost for those now may be more than it was before. Okay. Anyway, I think I'm running kind of long on this, so I'd better wrap this up before my camera shuts off. Keep these things in mind. We could be heading for real interesting times. I'll probably make one on different ways to carry over on Patreon if I get around to that today. I got to go back and write because I am busily, frantically writing on book number 6 to add to the Stonemont series. If I didn't say what they were, the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom. And if you want the blessings of freedom, you got to be ready to fight for them. Okay. All right. You all have a great day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And again, if you want to know how to get those books, and I'll order larger numbers, I swear, right down here, there are in the information section, show you how to get them from Amazon or get them from me. Like I said, it takes longer from me because I keep running out. That's a great problem for a writer to have. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you all. And by the way, for those of you who order them from me, I love sitting down at my desk and signing those and writing to the people who have ordered. So it's something that I love to do. So thank you so much for being with us. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.